Welcome to the October update for the Hopkins Group Investment Committee for the Managed Discretionary Account Service. I'm going to start this video with an update from an economically and then go through to the investment portfolio and some of the discussions we're having. So from an economic point of view, the US particularly is seeing strong inflation still. It's being maintained. So it's not really increasing a lot, but it's maintained at higher levels. And what we've seen, if you look underneath the numbers, is that goods inflation is starting to come back under control. So some of those supply chain issues that they had is starting to dissipate, and you're starting to see goods sort of falling in price. But what that is being offset by is increase in services inflation, and that includes things like getting a coffee, going out for restaurants, and that type of thing. And what that's seen is that inflation in the US remains high, and it looks like it's going to be pretty sticky. With that, you're also seeing the increase in wages, and obviously with high inflation, people want bigger increases in wages, and that's obviously a spiral that's the Federal Reserve in the US and the RBA here in Australia is trying to bring back and bring those expectations under control. And while it's sticky, there is potentially signs that inflation is starting to come back under control, and hopefully, I guess, over the preceding 2 or 3 years that inflation will come back to more normal levels where the Reserve Bank and the Federal Reserve are more comfortable. In the US, we also saw earnings season get underway, and it's certainly not complete by any stretch of the imagination, but there's some good results coming out from some companies, and obviously other companies are struggling a little bit. But one of high note is the Bank of America reported their earnings, and as part of that report of their earnings, they highlighted that consumers are using their credit card more than they were 12 months ago. There was a 13% increase in credit card usage, which could be seen as a good thing in that people are happy to spend, and their high wages and the strong employment over there is resulting in consumer spending. Or it could be considered a negative in that people are no longer able to afford their lifestyle and they're using their credit card to get through. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But what they are reporting, is that consumers aren't necessarily slowing down, and businesses aren't slowing down on their spending, and that the economy is still very robust over there. So it'll be really interesting to see from a forward-looking perspective as to when that slowdown does occur, because we certainly expect it to occur. And it may be that the earnings from companies result in sackings, of the employment workforce, because with the costs of the cost base of their earnings is increasing. In order to bring that back under control, they may obviously sort of result in sackings to keep their costs down, because the earnings line is not necessarily going to grow as much as what they would like. So that could be a side effect that we potentially see amongst the US corporates. On the portfolio front, we discussed making a number of changes, but we didn't make any changes during this month's investment committee. So what we're starting to see is there is potentially a turning point in the markets at the moment. So you're starting to see that potentially that inflation starting to come under control, which will result in central banks not needing to increase interest rates to bring it under control, which again sort of should settle markets down, and you could be seeing a bottoming out of markets. So while we haven't made any changes, we are monitoring the potential for changes. So the portfolio has been really performing well. So what we did 6 and 12 months ago in being more defensive, adding more infrastructure, adding more private equity, sort of taking conservative approach to the fixed income component. So we had a lot of floating rate fixed income notes, which again sort of provided some extra performance compared to a broader market portfolio. So it's really worked really effectively. A lot of the things we did, we obviously cut the exposure to the Australian, or kept the exposure to Australian dollar. We cut the hedging, so that's sort of seen the Australian dollar fall from 72 cents to the low 60s in the last 3 or 4 months, and we've been largely unhedged in that way. So we're considering looking at hedging. Again, we've had multi-year lows in the Australian dollar, so probably since the 1990s, since the Paul Keating Banana Republic comment at that time. So, we're starting to see that, and we're starting to consider unwinding that. So again, portfolios, we're looking sort of 12, 18 months out to make the changes to the portfolios, and we certainly expect, difficult times in 2023, but maybe towards the end of 2023 that's going to change, and sort of making those changes to the portfolios is going to be important. So we're looking to potentially add some more growth orientated names to the portfolio, reducing some of the exposures that have worked. Again, we had a higher exposure to infrastructure, which again we may look to unwind over the next couple of months to get the growth back into the portfolio. And again, also with the private equity, it's been a really stable long-term returner, but perhaps reducing some of that extra private equity exposure to provide some more growth going longer term. So the portfolios broadly have performed very well, and you can see that in the written notes that we send out. But as part of this video review, just sort of giving you an update about what changes we're considering and some of the things that we're looking at doing. So hope you enjoyed the video update for this month, and look forward to seeing you again next month.